American air power would once more
Yeah.
devastate any invaders trying to move through the flat
They all
terrain
will
of the
die.
US-Mexico border.
Hey guys, it's the Loud Guys. Today we are going to watch Could the US defend itself from an invasion of the Homeland? And like we have seen the mighty power of the USA in many videos, and we know that there is no chance for it. But you know, if there is a video, then there is some spark into it, and there is something. And of course, like if all the big countries like Russia, China get together, they can manipulate some things. And also the thing is, like today, the war is not with like today's war is not going on with weapons and everything. It is going on with technology and also hacking into stuff, and then like blocking someone's pipeline and doing all the other kind of things. So on those kind of things, you know, we know that Russian hackers and Chinese hackers are very ahead in that. Also US is also very good at it. So we will see what is there in this video.
And I do believe that it is not very easy to defeat America, and I do think that it's not very easy to to harm America, because as we know that it is a very powerful country, not only economy wise but also army wise, and mostly it is the world powerful country. And I do think that no country, if the two or three countries will do friendship and they will attack America, then maybe America can lose. Otherwise America could not lose the war. So yeah, I'm so much excited to watch this video, so let's watch.
Yeah, and also if you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe the channel. So let's watch this video.
It's the early 1980s, and over the sky of the American heartland, Soviet and Cuban paratroopers begin to fall from the sky. In minutes, thousands of communist invaders have gained a foothold in the very heart of America. With World War III in full swing, it's up to a band of plucky teenagers to fight a guerrilla war against the godless commies. If you grew up in the 80s or just plain don't have bad taste in movies, then you're well aware of the action hit Red Dawn, a film that portrays a Soviet invasion of the United States toward the end of the Cold War. No, we're not talking about the remake. We don't speak of the remake. But film aside, could it really happen? That question was asked by infographic show fan Blazik, who wanted to know if someone were to invade America, could the US pull all its forces home and hold out against a foreign invader?
It can.
Despite what fiction like Red Dawn would have you believe, the United States was never in any danger of an invasion by the Soviet Union, mostly because the Russian people were about as interested in invading the US as Americans were in invading the Soviet Union. Of course, that didn't stop politicians and military officials on both sides using the fear of an evil capitalist or communist invasion from ballooning defense budgets. The saddest fact of the Cold War just might be that despite all the preparations to defend from an invasion by both sides, neither NATO nor the Soviet bloc ever had a single war plan drawn up for an actual preemptive invasion of the other's territory.
Yes.
But another major reason why the US was never under any threat of an invasion is due to its unique place in the world geography. In order for an enemy to get to America, first it must cross two massive oceans. And this geographic fact makes the United States the single most secure nation on Earth. Even today, moving troops and equipment across the oceans is a massive undertaking in terms of both logistics and cost, and very few nations are even capable of attempting the feat. But let's say that the two leading peer competitors to the US decided to join forces and team up against the United States. With all troops returned home from overseas, could the US defend itself against a double-sided assault against it by China and Russia?
Yeah.
First, the two-power alliance would have to decide on where to strike. For an invasion to be successful, both nations would have to land troops as quickly as possible, and that would require the use of a working seaport. These ports would require good rail and road infrastructure, and must have deep water anchorages so that large cargo ships could dock and disgorge troops and heavy equipment. The need to take and hold major seaports is critical, as aside from a few token forces with a small number of fire support platforms, amphibious landings alone wouldn't be able to deliver firepower fast enough to secure a beachhead. In Normandy during World War II, the success of the landings was largely down to a brilliant deception played out by the Allies, which saw the Nazis concentrate their forces at the wrong landing site. And even when the real landings happened 100 miles away, Nazi commanders were so fooled by Allied intelligence that they ordered their forces to hold their position. suspicions, believing that the real assault was coming their way any day.
What the
The
hell?
ruse, combined with some whopping tactical blunders by Hitler, allowed the Allies to quickly build a makeshift port facility which let Allied armor and artillery disembark. Had Hitler allowed his commanders to commit panzer reinforcements to the landings, Normandy would have likely ended as a complete catastrophe for the Allies. By the time he cleared reserve panzer units for the assault on the beachheads, Allied logistical units had already disembarked enough tanks to repel the assault.
Wow.
In an invasion of the US homeland, such a ruse would be impossible to pull off. Long-range and satellite surveillance assets would see an invasion fleet days before it made landfall, and its target would be clearly known to the American defenders. Therefore, China and Russia would have to act quickly and decisively, taking major seaports and holding them long enough to disembark a sizable expeditionary force able
They
to
would
repel
also have to
American
take help of
counter-assaults.
Canada and Mexico.
For China, the only good options for unloading main battle tanks and mechanized artillery would be the ports in LA, Long Beach, Oakland, Tacoma, and Seattle. The LA Long Beach complex would be especially attractive as it's one of the world's largest ports and would allow Chinese forces to disembark very quickly. Unfortunately, these port facilities are also very close to several American air and naval bases, making them easily defended. The Seattle and Tacoma ports, however, are far more vulnerable, as only 5 major American bases are near these facilities. Landing in Washington, though, would mean Chinese forces would have to fight south and into California through easily defended and very mountainous terrain, a tactical nightmare for any Chinese commander.
Oh.
Russian invaders would face an even less enviable job. The American East Coast is home to far more numerous large port facilities, giving the Russian invasion force a greater number of targets to pick from. Unfortunately, the American East Coast is also the most heavily defended, with several dozen major military installations spread out from north to south. The East Coast is also home to America's largest military shipyards, which would be so heavily protected it would be suicidal to attempt a landing or assault against them.
Actually.
Russia's best bet would be to attempt a landing in Mobile, Alabama or Houston, Texas. This, however, would mean Russian forces would have to spend more time out at sea and move into the Gulf of Mexico, where they would be surrounded on all sides but the south by major American air bases. For both our challengers, the tactical picture is not looking very good, as the United States simply has no viable landing sites for a major expeditionary force that couldn't be easily defended. China and Russia could opt to coerce or bribe Mexico or Canada into allowing them to land at their facilities and launch an invasion into the US itself. This would be by far the best strategic option for the invasion forces, but in response to the agreement between either nation and the Sino-Russian alliance, the United States would immediately begin a large-scale bombing campaign against port facilities in Canada or Mexico,
No, they
with
cannot
every
take that.
viable port being within easy reach of American bombers. Even before the invasion force crossed the ocean, they would be sailing for ports that have been turned into rubble.
Hell.
Assuming that the US didn't use naval aviation, which it definitely would, the invaders could opt for using ports in South America, well out of reach of most American bombers, and then simply move north to invade through Mexico. Moving through South America's
Interesting.
poor rail and road infrastructure, though, would be a nightmare for the invaders, allowing plenty of time for the US to simply move blocking forces through Mexico to Panama and then hold off the invasion there. If, miraculously, though the Alliance did manage to land forces in Canada or Mexico, it would face a different tactical nightmare altogether.
What?
In Canada, the lack of suitable border crossings would force the invaders to spread out over a large area, or bottleneck and be subjected to endless attacks by American air power.
Yes.
In Mexico, military border crossings would be possible over a far larger area, but enemy forces would be moving through terrain that provided absolutely no cover. American air power would once more devastate any invaders trying to move through the flat
They all
terrain
will
of the
die.
US-Mexico border. Geography alone provides the United States with near invulnerability from enemy invasion,
Everything is
but the logistics
perfect
of the
for
world's
US.
militaries proves why the US simply cannot be invaded. An invasion of the American homeland would rely on naval power to get the job done. And right off the bat, no nation on Earth, nor any combination of nations, has the firepower and logistical support needed to carry out such an invasion.
Yep.
The matter is one of historical necessity for the world. Ever since the end of the Second World War, all of the world's major powers have had no need to project military power far from their own shores, except for the United States. The Soviet Union was chiefly concerned with securing its European borders, and in the case of a Third World War, its most vital strategic objectives could all be reached over land. The vitally important oil fields of the Middle East could all be taken via land routes through Afghanistan and Iran, and no navy was needed to hold off NATO forces in Europe. The same was true for Europe's NATO members. While once their mighty navies ruled the waves all over the world, their concerns in the 20th century quickly became resisting a possible Soviet invasion, and for that, no major naval power was force needed. In the Atlantic, the Soviets hoped to slow the American response with the use of submarines, but ultimately knew that they could never stop the US Navy and thus never seriously tried. On the other side of the world, China struggles to turn itself into a first world power, and other than resentment towards Japan over its actions in World War II, China has had no real motivations to build a strong navy, at least until now. Much like the Soviet Union and Europe's NATO partners though, China definitely had no real reason to build a heavy sea lift capability in order to move thousands of troops and heavy equipment across the ocean. On the other hand, the United States is both blessed and cursed by geography. While it's untouchable to invasion thanks to the Atlantic and the Pacific, it also means that in order to project power on the world stage, America has always needed a strong navy. This is the reason that the US has always had a very strong naval tradition, and why it has invested in naval and air transport more than any other nation on Earth. If US troops want to get somewhere, after all, they're certainly not walking there. To even get forces into the US, any invading army is going to need some serious sea lift capability, and no force on Earth comes even close to the US's 125-vessel Military Sea Lift Command, which operates a vast fleet of oilers, tankers, and heavy cargo transports. Yet, even this fleet is not enough according to some analysts, and plans are being called for that include dramatically increasing the capability of the US's military transport fleets.
Why?
China has in recent years expanded its landing ship capabilities, with several dozen available to carry troops and heavy equipment. These ships, though, are not meant for global operations and are only designed for cross-strait invasions into Taiwan or to ferry supplies to China's illegal holdings in the artificial islands it built across the South China Sea. A crippling lack of support vessels such as oilers means that China cannot physically get its landing ships across the Pacific, though even if this problem were to be solved, the nation cannot hope to make a contested landing on foreign soil. Again, this is because of China's lack of need for a global expeditionary military force. China's chief military concerns lie with a military invasion and forced repatriation of Taiwan, and thus it has not invested money into developing a true blue water navy. Russia has even less naval transport capability and support vessels, which again is a result of its military objectives being close to home. To compound the two nations' sea lift problems, both nations have no dedicated amphibious assault ships capable of providing close air support
And again,
air
the same
superiority
conclusion.
to landing forces on a
You
contested
cannot
beach.
defeat
By
America.
comparison, the US operates 9 of these specialized vehicles,
Not
and
at
they
its
will
home
soon
for
be
sure.
equipped with the F-35 stealth fighter. Projecting air power is in fact the biggest weakness for any nation hoping to invade the US, and China and Russia combined only operate 2 active-duty aircraft carriers of extremely limited capabilities. Russia's infamous Admiral Kuznetsov very publicly had to be towed back to a friendly port after experiencing severe mechanical problems. Without adequate air power, neither nation could expect to secure a foothold on the US mainland. America's air forces are twice as large as both nations combined, and its naval aviation alone is as large as Russia's total air power. If by some miracle either nation could get troops across the ocean to US shores, the lack of air power would reduce the attempted landings to a suicide mission. In the end, not only could the US protect from an invasion of the homeland, but it is currently and for the foreseeable future completely invulnerable to military invasion. Luckily, the US, China, and Russia have no desire to fight each other, and there exists no real reason to.
What an informative video it was. Seriously, got to know that it's not very easy to attack on America. And we, as I told you earlier, that if 2 or 3 countries would will attack on the America, then obviously America would easily get destroyed. But I was totally wrong, that if 2 or 3 countries will join and they will attack on America, then it's not very easy to defeat America. And yeah, and I do feel that it's not only because of the weapons and all, it's only because it is also because of the special training which is given to the soldiers. And yeah, I do think Americans are the luckiest ones who are born in the America, because they can feel so safe in America, because we got to know that if the things will happen like this, then what will America will do. And we also got to know the role of the Canada. What will Canada do if this kind of situation will happen. So yeah, this video was so informative, and yeah, I really like the whole video.
We have seen many videos and many people imagine many things like this could happen, that could happen, this could be done. but whatever they say, in the end they have the same conclusion that it cannot be defeated or it cannot be invaded and this and that, because that is the only thing, because the amount of naval power it has. And that he's very right about it, that the geography of US is very good to defend itself, but is also very bad to attack, because for to attack they also have to go out and they have to like travel through the Pacific and the Atlantic to go out to other countries. So that is why US has to keep all these bases in all these other countries and has to maintain them, and it costs them a lot, and they have to regularly make sure that they are doing the job. So that is, it's a boon and also a very bad thing for them, and they have to make sure they are paying a lot of money. That is how we saw that in the previous video, that they have spent about $800 billion annually on this, and that is what we know, what is there. And if you don't know that there could be even more, so it is about $1 trillion amount of money on just the army itself. And also like all the other countries like combined do not spend that amount of money. So this is how the US is so powerful, and we can never ever be invaded. What are your thoughts about it? Do let us know in the comment section below. So do like, share, and
Subscribe.
bye.
Bye.